Hi, I'm Patrick Curtis, CEO and founder of Wall Street Oasis. This is a chat with Aryn, another WSO Academy alum that was able to break into investment banking at Wells Fargo, coming from Northeastern. He joined the program his sophomore year, and he shares why networking through the academy gave him such an advantage. Enjoy. All right, Aryn, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, of course. It's a pleasure.
So I'd love for you to give the listeners a kind of short summary bio of kind of where you came from.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Aryn. I'm now third year at Northeastern University. Originally from Nashville, didn't know anything about finance, but got to Northeastern and realized I wanted to pursue finance, and that's sort of how I found Wall Street Oasis.
Cool. So talk to me about, some people are familiar with the co-op program, some people are not. So if you could just give a quick summary of kind of what that is, and then kind of where you were when you found us and how you were feeling kind of near the beginning of your, because I guess you got to Northeastern, was it like a suddenly, oh, I want banking or I want finance, or was it more like I'm exploring, because you did a little VC, you're, you looked at buys, you're kind of just learning a little bit, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, I wasn't entirely sure if I wanted to do finance until like pretty deep into my freshman year. So I missed out on, like maybe doing the right clubs. I did have a VC internship that I really liked, and that's sort of what pushed me into going into finance. So maybe I can take a step back and explain the co-op program first.
Yeah.
So Northeastern has something that's sort of unique to Northeastern and a few other schools in the country, where instead of doing like summer internships, we do 6-month long internships with companies. So we'll go and like fully integrate, not take classes for that period, and work for a company for 6 months. And we do that twice in our college career. So you pretty much have 1 year of working experience before you come out of school. And I came to Wall Street Oasis the summer of my sophomore year because I was going to start recruiting for that sort of co-op program right as school started. And I was pretty scared because I hadn't sort of, taken the right accounting classes. I hadn't done the, freshman networking that a lot of people spend time doing. I had that VC experience. So I really wanted to figure out, like, was I ready and like, sort of positioning myself for recruitment. And I think, so far it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, and Aryn came to us. I remember thinking on our first call, I'm like, he'll be fine. He's super sharp and driven. Even though you're a little bit later, I think the great thing about the Northeastern program is for people who are a little bit later, it kind of allows that pause. I know this is much more common. Like in Canada, they do this all the time. Like it's the off-cycle internships, a little bit in the UK as well. But for the US, it's a little bit less common. But talk to me about kind of what you landed initially. So you had a VC one. Talk to me about like what you were thinking about and how you kind of, once you joined Academy, what you started working on right away.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I guess the journey was pretty interesting. And I think the Academy really helped me navigate that because Northeastern recruits quite a bit from a lot of investment banks. But looking at what I wanted to do specifically was at that time M&A. And I realized that there's not enough M&A sort of co-ops and bulge bracket banks from Northeastern. So that means I would have to compete for a summer analyst while preparing myself for a co-op program at Northeastern as well. So I started off with the venture capital internship. I continued that pretty much my entire freshman year and the entirety of my sophomore year until I started my co-op. And when I came to the Academy, I didn't have an investment banking co-op, but I was actually able to get the longest standing investment banking co-op at a boutique out of Portland because of the Academy. They were able to, within, I think, 2 months, get my resume in line, get me the mocks done, and get my technicals in line so I could pass that interview. And I was actually fortunate enough to get one of the first offers for an investment banking co-op period at Northeastern. And I think a lot of that was like, entirely to the Academy. And it was really interesting, my onboarding when I joined that investment bank. The first week I ended up doing Wall Street Academy courses again because that was how they would onboard people. And it was sort of like a full circle moment when I started like the summer before, so like, 6 months after, and I'm, at this investment bank sort of redoing the stuff that I already did. But was then I had to.
Did you get to move West Coast or was it remote?
No, I was luckily remote. I didn't have to go to Portland.
We got it.
Yeah, but I think then I had to again use the Academy to sort of pivot because I knew I wanted to go to a bulge bracket. And I wanted to get that M&A experience, something that we didn't really have too many co-ops for. We had S&T co-ops at bulge brackets, but I realized that sort of my passion lied in M&A and towards more of the, coverage groups and product group side. So I was again able to contact Wall Street Academy and then, talk to my mentors and make a plan on how I would position myself with this 6-month internship that I have at an investment bank and sort of jump into a bulge bracket as a summer analyst. So over the last 6 months, I've been working very closely with some of the head mentors who have allowed me to, prepare for interviews, go and talk to people, start my networking guide, and sort of figure out how to position the 6-month experience that I have, which is fairly unique, and prepare me for a bulge bracket, investment banking role. And finally, to the recruiting cycle, sitting in May, I just got my offer for Wells Fargo, doing investment banking. So again, I was able to sort of, connect the dots between, where I started in VC to getting my first co-op, and then getting, the ultimate goal of, a bulge bracket.
You were cutting it close. May's pretty late.
Yeah, I was getting scared. Yeah.
But no, yeah, I mean, I think you obviously didn't have it wasn't a super target school. You had, I'm sure a lot of the alum you were talking to probably were in sales and trading, right?
Yeah.
So it makes it a little bit difficult and tricky because you don't want to offend them or anything like that. So it's it's also, you're playing a little bit of that where you have to find people. So talk to me a little bit about that networking. So as you scaled that up and you started, you knew your story, you started doing the technicals. Did you get on 20 calls, 50 calls? I've talked to some people, it's 80. Because you were doing the co-op at that point, did you have a lot of time or were you getting worked pretty heavy?
Yeah, I was getting worked pretty rough. So I think I did maybe 15 networking calls. I was able to convert, I would say 7 of them into interviews. But a lot of them, as I think you mentioned right on the head, were not in groups that I sort of really wanted to pursue. And I think they were, great impact, really impactful, because I was able to learn a lot and understand how some people operated and the work that they did. But a lot of my experience didn't really translate well into a completely different group. But yeah, I was able to, through that, interview at some of the largest, boutique investment banks and private equity firms. And again, go through Wall Street Academy and their, mentors and people who have worked at those funds to, go through those interviews. In the end, I actually ended up getting the offer from a place that cold applied to, no networking, nothing. But again, it sort of worked out weirdly because the group that I interviewed with, someone had just left from Northeastern, and they were loved in that group. So I think I got a little bit of a benefit of that. But yeah, definitely think I should have done more recruiting and more networking.
Yeah, and I feel like you had a super strong CV from what I remember. I think it doesn't surprise me that you made it. I think, in retrospect, you were building a really powerful resume to help your conversions. So that's why your conversions were so high. It's because you had the boutique IB, you had VC internship, and obviously your GPA was really high too, and all that other good stuff, and leadership. So it doesn't shock me. I guess looking back on kind of when you started with us and kind of near the end, is there any kind of final words of wisdom you'd give to the students kind of looking at this program, or just looking at general, just how to prep for recruiting in general?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say sort of use the resources. I think, the Academy has a ton of resources. And, for me, I guess the two things that really stand out was, when I came in, my resume was 3 pages long. I had a ton of stuff from high school.
We had to chop a lot, huh?
Right. And it hurt my heart because I was look, I spent hours on this. And all of a sudden, someone's coming in and be 90% of this needs to go. Yeah. But I think that's important, right? That someone who's gone through the process, being able to, and all the mentors in the Academy aren't people who, know about recruiting. They're people who've worked in banking. I think they get it far better than a website would. And I think they're able to, narrow down and sort of, rework your resume to keep what's important, not necessarily what you want to keep. And I think the second part of that was, utilizing the deep roster that they have. I think for me, an example of that was that I was recruiting at a private equity firm in the South, and I hadn't heard of that name. I don't think anyone I talked to had heard of that company, but I was able to talk to someone who had done associate recruiting there. I think it was it's a 40-person shop. And, being able to talk to someone who worked there for 2 years and had this deep knowledge about people, and being able to name drop those people and say, hey, I know this person and they do this data mining for you. Being able to say that in an interview and see all my interviews, just be wait, how do you know that? Was just a really cool experience. And I think even at Wells Fargo, I had a lot of information about, the people who had helped me with recruiting had, sort of prepped me for, hey, these are the most important groups. These are the new entities who have come in. And I was able to, again, sort of connect the dots and get an understanding of the company that I don't think a lot of other people haven't had that experience and that, networking call can do. And I think it's because with the Academy, they're a lot more open to share that information with you than someone with a random networking call might.
Yeah. And did you feel like when you were prepping for like the Wells Super Day, did you take advantage of that as well, or had you already done so much networking with Wells, you felt like you had a good sense of it?
I didn't do any external networking for Wells. I actually just went through the academy,
You did?
and worked out great. I spoke with Tim. I think Tim did a practice technical interview.
Okay.
He's like he gives you that tough love that's super critical, and like smacks you into place. And it was super important to get sort of those training wheels off. And I also talked to someone at Wells who had worked at Wells before, to get an understanding of the coverage groups, or is the most exciting things that they're working on.
Yeah, and I think when you were going through a lot of the mocks, we actually didn't have the grade. We have full-on grading now. I don't know if you knew that, where we give you.
Yeah, I did. I got my first report recently.
You got your first report card. Good. What was your score? Were you scoring the 80s, 90s?
The first one in the 70s, but it got better than that. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I mean, 70s isn't that bad. Sometimes people start off there in the 50s and they get, we like to say, based on what we've been seeing in the offers coming through to all our students, we say like you probably want to be scoring like at least mid 80s, high 80s to low 90s across all the subcategories to have pretty good confidence that you're going to land at least one offer. Yeah. So it's great data that we have now kind of at our fingertips to let people know like, nope, you got to keep going. Sorry, you're not ready.
And it's hard to like see like how hard technicals are, but I think the academy just the sheer number of mocks that you do and the technicals that you do really just helps you like prepare for all angles of the questions.
Yeah, sometimes in the office hours, people are like, I've done a few mocks. Who's the hardest? Like, and I'll be like, oh, you got to talk to this person and this person. They'll grill you. So it's good. Sometimes people are like, oh, I feel good, and then they go into another mock. And the other thing I really like is you can get different kind of styles and different levels of difficulty based on whoever you select. And so like there's 60 head mentors right now in terms of like, who gives a really tough technical, who gives a really tough behavioral that won't like let you get away with like a BS answer. That type of stuff is really important because that's going to basically be preparing you for the hardest type of interview, which is maybe there's a good cop, bad cop sitting there. One guy's like just looking at his phone the whole time or ignoring you, and you're not going to get flustered because you've had that experience before. So great. Well, Aryn, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story, and hope you survive this upcoming summer or next summer rather, and this summer you have a great time.
Super excited. Thanks so much.